I apologize in advance for having the most boring topic ever, but my paper was something along the lines of Italian stagecraft revolutionizing the stage. So for my presentation in class, I just kind of did an in-depth look at 3 different theaters that are still standing today that were created during the Italian Renaissance. Little overview. Theaters began as temporary structures, and then they became obviously permanent structures. We have them today. I want to talk about the movement to permanent structures. All buildings have specific purposes and adjustable decor so that they could be used for different things. Like right now, this could be used as classroom, whatever. It's not a theater, but you understand the concept. Other than theater, these theaters were used for spiritual gatherings, celebrations, stately celebrations and events, and even royal weddings. The first permanent structure that was used for performances was built in Mantua, Italy, from 1549 to 1551 by Giovanni Battista Bertani. It was meant for stately celebrations as well as theatrical events, but it was kind of like the first main permanent theater, so it wasn't used extremely often. Like nobody knows what the name of it is, so yeah. It had really basic decor and a really basic stage, so it wasn't exactly revolutionary. The first theater that I'll talk about of the 3 that I have is the Teatro Olimpico. It was built in Vicenza, Italy in 1584. The 2 people that built it were Andrea Palladio and Vincenzo Scamozzi. They were the architects, they built it by themselves, I promise. And during the middle of construction in 1580, Andrea Palladio actually died, so Scamozzi helped finish the construction in 1584. It was built for the Olympic Academy in Vicenza, and currently it is the oldest standing theater that was built during the Italian Renaissance. Its design is pretty basic, but it's revolutionary because it could seat 3,000 people on elliptical benches that were connected to a stage house or a scena. It was used for theatrical events and eventually royal weddings that needed like a lot of space, because apparently 3,000 seats is a lot of space. The next one is the theater at Savionetta. It was obviously in Savionetta, Italy. It was built in 1588 by Vincenzo Scamozzi again. It resembled a banquet hall because it was created for the, pardon if I can't say this right, Accademia dei Confidenti. Yeah, some kind of academic thing, so we. It had a scenic background that had one vista covering the whole back wall of the stage. And it's said to be a smaller version of the Teatro Olimpico, so it's used for graduations, academic events, as well as theatrical events related to Christmas, Epiphany, and Easter. How do I go back? Like that? Okay, sorry. It has a little bit more about like the decor and stuff. It had a small colonnade or a sequence of columns around a horseshoe-shaped auditorium with a flat floor that had no fixed seating. This is like one of the most important things of its time, for it to have no fixed seating. It meant that it could be used for several different events. So it contained various paintings and statues that were usually on display, as well as event-based decor that could be moved or transported to different theaters. It was used for graduations, like I said, academic events, and different religious events. The last theater that I'll talk about is Teatro Farnese. It was built in Parma, Italy in 1618 by Giovanni Battista Aliotti. It's the most notable theater of this time, mostly because, bless you, the proscenium stage, or arch stage, was built at this time, which is apparently a huge deal. It was considered, it had a horseshoe theater with seats that are greeted by a semicircular orchestra in front of the stage. It seated roughly about 3,500 spectators. That number is not necessarily the right number. There's like a lot of debate still going on about that. Something I thought was cool is that the orchestra could actually be flooded for different aquatic battles and naval scenes. So they would just like flood it and then empty it after the scene was done. Talking more about the proscenium arch stage, it's kind of like, if you go into a theater now, you see that there's like a picture frame that you look through kind of to see the show, and that's considered the proscenium stage. It wasn't the first one, but it's considered the prototype of all preceding March stages. It had a lot to follow, but obviously now it's kind of the most popular thing. It's not exactly the same, but they're very similar. It held very few productions and stately banquets, but different performances were done there. So most of these, all these theaters were created specifically to be adaptable at this point because it did make that huge shift from being temporary structures to permanent structures. So elements that were added to the stage that could be moved was the periactoi, which is like a three-sided, I guess you could say flat that you could just turn and it would have different like pictures and stuff on it. Statues could be changed, art paintings, history paintings, and obviously the stage set. It could be changed and dismantled for academic, royal, and religious or secular events. So basically, they're using these theaters for all different events because they could. It's, you know, it's a large space. It could be used for all different things. So, yay. Thank you.